Welcome back to the Abundance Alchemist, your quiet space to remember who you are. Tonight we speak softly about rewire overthinking into clarity, not as a goal to chase, but as something your soul already recognizes. As the mind is gentle even when it tries to be loud. In the dark, under moonlight, thoughts can spin stories faster than your heart can hold. And yet, what if you've never actually been broken? What if your softness was the wealth all along? What if the mind that tries to protect you isn't a burden, but a guide longing for direction? Let the room get quieter around you. Let the covers feel a little heavier, like safety or hush or a memory of home. There's nothing to fix tonight. There is only this honest meeting with yourself, breath rising, falling, wondering who you might be, beneath all the loops and whys, and how's that ache for clarity, can you sense it? Not as a hunger, but as recognition. Does some deep part of you already remember the feeling of knowing, the feeling before the mind tried to explain it all away? Sometimes we lay awake thinking that clarity is the opposite of chaos, that peace is the reward for figuring everything out. But what if peace is older than answers? What if relief comes not by solving, but by softening into what's always been true? This is an open invitation, not to silence your mind, but to welcome it gently home. Could it be easier than you thought, just to notice how thoughts make shapes without ever needing to become storms? Or to admire the way the mind tries to protect even when it feels overwhelming? Stay with this, stay with these questions. The truth is not far or hidden. It rests right here, beneath all the stories. Let the edges of worry grow softer, the sound of your heart a little louder. You are not here to become different. You are here to remember. And as you rest, what's already true gets to surface, quiet, clear, and entirely yours. There's a restless ache, you know. It lives in the small hours where thoughts spill across the sheets, and the mind begins its wandering. Maybe you trace old routes again and again, looking for the moment you could have chosen differently. Maybe clarity seems like a faraway light, flickering at the end of a long, invisible hallway. The ache is not loud. It sighs, soft and humming beneath the noise, invisible but insistent, the question that won't sleep, the wanting that will not hush. Sometimes you imagine what it would be to simply rest inside yourself without the crowded thoughts. Not fixing or finding or sorting, but sinking. Is it possible to be still and whole when the ache comes? When your chest tightens with the weight of untold stories? When your mind circles back to the same ache, like fingers tracing the worn edges of a childhood photo? There is a desire underneath all of it, some old longing for peace. Have you noticed how clever your mind can be at rehearsing every angle, as if that could protect you? There's a fragile hope that if you can think hard enough, or long enough, you might discover an answer that soothes it all away. But the ache is not asking to be solved. It wants to be heard, seen, recognized as holy in its persistence. Sometimes the longing for clarity is really a longing to remember your own softness. Sometimes the ache is the doorway. In the quiet, there's the sense that your mind's trying to shield your heart. Like an older sibling staying up late, keeping watch for what's coming, loyal, insomniac, exhausted. Even when you ache for rest, the watcher persists. And so tonight, the ache is here, just as you are. No need to push it aside or reason it away or make it useful. Just breathe. Let the ache be another guest in this room. You know its voice. It knows yours. Once that ache seemed like the problem, now, maybe it is something else. Maybe it's just a gentle reminder that you are alive and feeling. Maybe it means there is still something within you unbroken that wants to see the dawn. Sometimes the wanting is so constant it starts to feel like home. The mind traces loops that look a lot like hope, only softer at the edges, quieter when you lean close. Underneath the swirl of thoughts there lives a simple ache. The longing for just one clear moment. A wish to breathe in the center of yourself without searching every shadow for what could go wrong. To remember what it was like before every feeling came with a choice, and every choice came with a second guessing. Notice the gentle pull of desire, not frantic, not even urgent, but present like moonlight pooling on your bedroom floor. It arrives in the quiet, in the moment right before sleep when your guard drops and you sense there's more. Something clean, whole, waiting inside. There's an ache behind the thoughts, something in you that wants to remember what clarity truly feels like. Not the clarity of knowing everything, but the clarity that feels like being held, like the fog lifting, just enough for you to see your own hands, and trust what you're holding is enough for now. So many times you've tried to puzzle things out, thinking if you could just arrange your thoughts the right way, finally the tightness in your body would melt. But what if clarity is not another step or answer, but the natural state that slowly emerges when you stop believing every thought requires your intervention? What if beneath all your overthinking, there's a place that never learned how to be tangled in the first place? Feel into that yearning, the slow, sweet craving for relief, for the kind of peace that doesn't mean perfection, just presence, just breathing in and noticing that the world keeps turning even when you don't keep solving. So sometimes desire feels like a gentle knock at the door of your heart. It's not a demand or a reprimand, just curiosity, asking what it would mean to be met with kindness, to look at yourself with eyes that don't measure but simply see. You remember moments when your mind was still, even if for just a breath. Maybe it was the warmth of a shower after a long day, or the innocent pleasure of sunlight painting your arm. Those moments, so alive, so brief, are clues. Your desire isn't wrong for wanting to return there. The longing for clarity is not a flaw. It's a voice within you tracing the path home. Even as your mind returns again and again to old roads, you sense the wisdom in your hunger, the humility in your longing. There is freedom buried inside the ache, the freedom to surrender your search for a perfect answer, and to trust that rest lives nearby. The desire for clarity is a signpost, not a judgment. It points you inwards toward a quieter truth, a steadier knowing, one that has always waited beneath the noise, content, and unchanged, patient as the stars outside your window. There is a kind of quiet that grows loud only after midnight, when everyone else is dreaming, but you're still circling the same thought like a lighthouse, stuck on one turning. Before the world learned your name, fear was only a shadow in a safe room. Now, it sometimes wears your voice and dresses up as reason, a string of what-ifs, whispering that maybe, if you just worry a little more, you'll be safe. It's never quite that simple. Sometimes fear feels like sitting with your back against a locked door, guarding the most tender part of you, always alert, always waiting for the next shoe to fall. You might notice it in the way your shoulders climb toward your ears as the night quiet stretches, or how your breath lands shallow inside your chest, never quite finding its way home. It shows up in the loop, the ache for certainty, the hunger to understand how every thread leads back to you, why you can't just let go, why clarity sometimes feels like a luxury meant for other people. There's a certain warmth to these anxieties, oddly familiar. They return night after night, never asking for permission, comforting in their predictability, haunting in how they convince you that this is just the way your mind was made. But deeper than the noise is a softer question, one that still lives underneath it all. Who would you be without this fear repeating itself? What shape would your heart take if it learned to trust its own rhythms? People sometimes call this overthinking, but really, it's your heart trying to keep you safe in a world that once felt sharp around the edges. And to let go, even for a breath, can feel like letting go of gravity itself. The presence of fear can be oddly grounding, a kind of proof that you are protecting something precious, your hopes, your softness, your right to feel so deeply, even when every part of you wants relief from this endless watchfulness. It's tender work to notice how fear keeps painting new shadows, making the familiar look strange, making the possible feel far away. So you listen, even in silence, to the endless loops spinning in your mind. You search for the moment, the exact second, when worrying might finally bring comfort, might finally hand you the answers you ache for. But tonight, maybe it's enough to simply notice the rhythm of your own heart, to let yourself rest, just for a moment, without making fear wrong or asking it to leave. In this gentle dark, every worry softens, breath by breath. You're not running out of time. You are allowed to move slowly, to feel the ache, to question the fear, to discover what waits beneath the noise. Sometimes that's where clarity first finds you. There are nights when the mind grows anxious in the emptiness, when thoughts sharpen quietly, trying to resolve ancient uncertainties just beneath the ribs. Under lamplight or darkness, a certain pattern unfurls. The mind travels, quick and looping, circling over possibilities, scanning for the single version of safety that never quite comes. It starts with a spark, sometimes so small it feels like nothing. One simple wondering, two things you wish you'd said, a moment replayed so often its edges have grown soft. Then it becomes a current, gentle at first. But it gathers. What if I missed something important? What if I'm not enough, here now, after everything I've learned? The pattern repeats itself like soft rain against a window, just loud enough to keep you from opening the door to sleep. Maybe the ache is not just worry. It's hunger for certainty, for clarity, for some promised ground where your heart can finally settle. The mind means to help. The mind wants to be the lantern that shows you every stone on the path, yet it ends up flickering, showing shadows rather than answers. Sometimes it's fear disguised as logic. Sometimes it's longing braided tightly with memories, childhood wishes, adult responsibilities, quiet disappointments you never quite shared with anyone but yourself. There's an old ache beneath the pattern, the tender belief that if you just think it through, just find the right combination of words or actions or apologies or plans, then you'll unlock relief. But what if relief is not found by solving? What if clarity comes in the pauses, in the letting go? You're not alone in this circling. There are millions of gentle souls who, once the world goes quiet, hear the old loop waking up. Who try to reason with the restlessness because nobody ever taught them to trust their own softness or to let the questions rest for a while. Sometimes the pattern feels like safety. Sometimes it feels like a small betrayal. Your mind, trying to keep you safe, holds your heart just out of reach of deep rest. The pattern isn't you. It's just a story stitched together from years when vigilance felt necessary, when answers felt like power, when clarity was currency. Now, as you listen and begin to remember, a quiet truth peeks through. Maybe you're changing. Maybe you don't have to solve. Let the ache in your chest melt into something softer. Let the stories you've circled become quiet hums in the background. The soul isn't in a rush. Even the deepest patterns, the oldest habits, sometimes only need acknowledgement, a soft, I see you. I remember why you started. Tonight, as you lay here in the dark, know that patterns aren't prisons, they're echoes of love, protection, hope. And just noticing, with gentle honesty, is sometimes all that's needed for a new story to begin weaving itself in the hush that follows. There is a moment, quieter than breath, when the mind pauses just long enough for truth to surface. This is not the silence you force, but the space your heart already knows. The place behind your eyes that remembers itself before questions began. Tonight isn't about erasing thoughts or finding the right answer. It's about letting what is real be simple again. There's a difference between thinking and listening. Sometimes thoughts tumble so quickly, you mistake the turbulence for intelligence. But notice, there's a subtler intelligence beneath the noise. Imagine letting the thoughts swirl, without needing to catch any, letting them land where they will, not as problems to fix, but as clouds passing across a dusk sky. It matters because in chasing every thought, you miss the invitation to listen for your soul's softer voice, the one that doesn't shout, but is always here, present, quietly correct in its understanding of who you are. Think about the hush of early morning, when the city hasn't stirred and every window is tinted with the possibility of a new day. That gentleness is inside you, smiling behind each thought. Or maybe it's like the ocean at night, waves rolling on whether you worry or not, the moon's reflection steady, no matter how the tide throws itself. You could even see it as the way you touch a page before writing, the second of stillness, a holy intake that reminds you not everything needs your intervention. This place of clarity is not earned, it's remembered. It's the ground that never moved, even when your mind spun stories of storms. Tonight, as you rest, notice how nothing breaks when you loosen your grip. Notice how clarity isn't louder than confusion. It's just more patient, like a friend who stays long after everyone else has gone, like rain that falls in the quietest parts of the world, feeding roots you didn't know you had until they began to grow. So sometimes the mind builds its own elaborate architecture out of worries and old decisions. Layers of should, too much thinking, too many doors opening all at once. Yet under all of it, something simpler is always waiting. And clarity isn't an answer you force or a prize you win. Clarity is what rises up when the noise quiets just a little, when you stop arguing with your own tenderness and let the truth be as plain as breath. This matters because so much energy gets spent holding together every possibility, rehearsing every outcome, balancing a world that was never yours to control. It becomes heavy to keep carrying each what if and maybe and not yet. It becomes exhausting to believe that clarity is distant instead of already humming in your chest. You start to forget the original pulse that moved you, that first wish to simply rest and be known. And clarity sometimes feels like standing at the shore at night, unable to see the ocean's end, but trusting that the earth holds you steady anyway. Or it feels like those rare mornings when the world is quiet and your entire body seems to exhale before a single thought can arrive. Or like the sudden ease when you name what's true, even if only in a whisper, after a long time circling in silence. These moments remind you that you aren't missing anything complicated. The answer was always ready to greet you when you finally returned home to yourself. Overthinking belongs to the part of you that wants to avoid pain, to stay safe. But clarity is the ancient remembering that you were safe all along. It's the sunlight that finds you even through clouded windows, the reflection you see in still water when you finally stop stirring up the surface. Light returns every time you let it. Somewhere within, there is a place older than worry, where thought does not race to fix or arrange, but simply rests, like a garden left wild, blooming without effort. You may have glimpsed it before, maybe just on the edge of sleep, that hush that slips in when the world gets too heavy to carry, the hush that says, "Let it be, let yourself be." Overthinking is the wind that rattles the branches, mistaking movement for meaning. But clarity is the tree itself, steady, rooted, belonging even in the storm, needing nothing to prove its worth. When thoughts swirl, the body tightens, 1,000 tiny knots form, and we believe that each worry needs our hands. But clarity is the gentle untangling. It is exhale. It is the moment you realize you are not your tangled thoughts. It matters because every time you catch your mind in a storm, there is a quieter truth waiting, one that whispers, "You are not broken by the questions you cannot answer." And to come home to this place inside, to remember, even for a breath, that you are not lost. You are witnessing your own gentle return. It is like standing by the ocean at midnight, letting the waves rush through your thoughts, noticing how they never ask to be controlled. Or like watching soft rain streak down a window while you remain warm inside, The world is busy outside, but your heart beats slow and sure. Or simply tracing your own hand in the dark, realizing you are still here, softer and safer than your mind has allowed you to believe. The soul knows this. There is always something beneath the storm, the original clarity, untouched and waiting, every thought just weather passing. Every night an invitation to remember what does not ask to be fixed. The night teaches in a way daylight never could. Softly, almost secret, a new clarity drifts in not by conquering thoughts, but by letting them melt. Each time you caught yourself looping through what-ifs, you were simply remembering how much you care. Every overthought thread was the soul tugging gently at the sleeve of your own attention. Now, with the hush of midnight circling you, with the hush of your own breathing, the ache of needing to solve loosens its grip. The old patterns pause, as if listening, as if surprised by your willingness to rest. Clarity is not a blade. It is the river smoothing stone. It is the hush inside your chest after a long sigh. It is the quiet at the end of a storm, not empty, but full of something too tender to name. Let yourself notice how easy it feels here, not to fix or undo. Here, where darkness folds around you like velvet, and any urge to figure it all out can finally settle. What you thought needed solving dissolves into the background, gentle as fog. In your smallest soft places, new space quietly opens. Remember the symbols that carried you, breath circling, time slowing, the silent language of moonlight across your skin. All of it here to remind you that nothing essential was ever urgent. Notice the fireflies of old worries blinking farther, farther, until only a warm hush remains. Notice how even doubt can curl up beside you, no longer a threat, just a part of the night's backdrop, part of the music that makes inner clarity ring true. Integration is not a task. It arrives like dawn, unhurried, absolute. You don't have to chase what is already finding you. Trust the return of your own softness, the original wealth, the one that doesn't run out. This chapter is the exhale after traveling through tangled thoughts, through shadows, through longing for an answer. You carried truth the whole way. Quietly, almost secret, it rises in you now. Let the journey settle beneath your ribs. Let the real clarity, the kind that feels like home, gently flood in. Let your body sink like a stone in honey. Let the thoughts, the doubts, the lists, and the old rehearsals slip behind a velvet curtain. Nothing to fix, nothing to keep spinning. Picture a stream. Wide and unhurried, you are lying on the softest moss, watching silvered leaves float by, one for each thought that wants to linger, each worry that used to tighten the muscles across your chest here. The leaves belong to the water, the stream belongs to the night, you belong to the gentle hush, wrapped close by the earth. Feel the quiet pulse beneath you, feel your breath grow heavy, like a secret only the stars can hear in this place. The air tastes like clarity, sweet and clean, each inhale brushing away what clings. Imagine a gentle breeze moving through your ribs, clearing away fog. Making space for the simplest kind of knowing, The kind that announces itself by what you don't need to do, the kind that softens your jaw, slows your hands, invites your mind to sit quietly beside you. Not in front of you with every breath. I feel the gap widen between the thought and the truth. Notice how the truth asks for nothing but your soft attention. Let your bones remember. Overthinking was always just love looking for a direction. It is safe now. Your clarity isn't a lightning bolt. It's the slow sunrise. It's the hush that comes before the world begins. I lie here, breathed by the night. All that matters is already here, already enough as you drift. Listen within. I am a vessel of clarity.